Hello and welcome back to my channel, Civil War Reports. I am your War of the Rebellion reporter, Brian Thomas Kopak, and today I'm back in front of the Virginia Monument here at the Gettysburg National Military Park because I'm going to be talking about another statue for Robert E. Lee. As you can see, he's up there on top of the Virginia Monument, on top of his favorite warhorse Traveler. Well, there was a similar monument to this down in Charlottesville, Virginia, that gained national attention in year 2017 when Civil War Southern Monument protester Heather Heyer, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, H-E-Y-E-R, was killed when she was struck by a car driven by James Alex Fields. Was that event that monument then gained national, if not worldwide, attention. And in 2021, that monument was removed from its pedestal. And I hate to report this, being a supporter of Southern monuments, but CNN reported on October 27th that monument was melted down. Again, it's always been the position of this channel to support Civil War history, all Civil War history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as I would say. Now, what happened to James Field? Well, he pleaded guilty probably to avoid the death penalty, and he's serving a life sentence. But again, I'm here to report about the chilling effect of what's going on, that these Southern monuments are under attack, that they are... well, this one in Charlottesville has been melted down. And when I went to the CNN website, which, well, CNN, like most corporate media, is biased, they had a picture of the severed head of the monument of Robert E. Lee in their photograph there. Pretty distasteful in my opinion. I'm now standing in front of the Alabama State Monument here at Gettysburg National Military Park because this next story I'm going to talk about comes out of Mobile, Alabama. And the source of this monument controversy is, well, you might find this one rather interesting. But before I leave here, I just want to show you what is written on the bottom of this monument here. Your names are inscribed on fame's immortal scroll. Your names are inscribed on fame's immortal scroll. Think about that as I continue on with this part of the ongoing fight over Southern monuments. I'm currently standing in front of the monument for Father William Corby, who was the chaplain for the 88th New York, which was part of the Irish Brigade, and on July 2nd, 1863, he granted absolution to those members of the Irish Brigade. There's a quick scene of that in the movie Gettysburg. Well, while Father Corby was obviously on the Union side, I am using him as the backdrop for this next story because this next story involves a priest from the Confederate side. And I'm talking about a monument for Father Abram Joseph Ryan. Well, Joseph Ryan, or Father Ryan, was known as the priest of the Confederacy, and a monument was erected to him in 1913. So this monument has been in place for 110 years. And not only is there a monument for him, but the park in which his monument sits in is also named after him. And now there is a petition going around, guess what, to not only remove the statue, but also to rename the park. Gee, what a surprise in this day and age. Well, Father Ryan, at the time of the dedication of his monument, was described as a poet and a writer, and that he was a good man, he was a priest. But all of that aside, even though his name is written on the immortal scroll, the park can't bear his name any longer, according to a few. So That's also under attack right now. And the reason why we have to, or people want to, rename his park and remove his statue is because, well, during his lifetime he held white supremacist views, racial views, and misogynistic views. Well, I do not advocate removing Southern monuments because, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people, is they tell history. But if we're going to attack people from the 1850s, 1860s, 1870s for their views based upon modern standards, let's take a look at some other quotes from that era. While I certainly cannot support or condone racism, a belief that one race is superior to the other, I'm certainly also not going to buy into the woke nonsense that there's such a thing as white privilege. But if we're going to judge people, well, let's judge them by the standards of their time and not use modern day times and impose our modern day belief system on people who died long before this belief system was put into place. But if we are going to do such a thing and judge people by how they lived 100 or more years before any of us were even born, well, let's take a look at some quotes by a very famous person who lived during the antebellum time and during the time of the Civil War, and judge them by today's standards and see whether or not such a person is worthy of monuments. So here goes. I'm going to read you 3 quotes from a very famous person who lived during the antebellum time and during the American Civil War. Tell me what you think. First one, quote, "There is a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together." This person went on to say in that same speech, "While they do remain together, there must be a position of superior and inferior." Let me repeat that. While they do remain together, there must be a position of superior and inferior. And I, as much as any man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. End quote. Another quote. Quote, "I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races." Third quote. Quote, "I am not, nor ever have been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor qualifying them to hold office." So who made these terribly racist statements? Confederate President Jefferson Davis? General Robert E. Lee? No. These quotes were stated by none other than President Abraham Lincoln. So, am I now going to advocate for the removal of Lincoln statues? Absolutely not. But I am not going to hold Abraham Lincoln or anybody else from the antebellum or the Civil War era or the Reconstruction era to a standard that did not exist. I am not going to hold any of them to 21st century standards because they did not live during the 21st century. Earlier this year, and beginning part of 2023, I did an episode about how the government was planning on renaming 9 military bases that were at that time named after Confederate generals and rename them to other people. Well, on October 27th, that plan by the government was completed. On October 27th, the final fort, named after a Confederate general, General Gordon, was renamed Fort Eisenhower. Now, while I have absolutely no objection to naming a fort after five-star general and President Dwight David Eisenhower, I did take exception to the renaming of a Confederate fort. Why rename it in the first place? And secondly, why not just build a nice new modern fort and name it after the great general Dwight David Eisenhower? Well, the theory behind renaming these 9 forts was that it would be more inclusive and bring America closer together. And at this point, I have to ask, has racial tensions really decreased at all in 2023 as a result of renaming these 9 forts? Put a comment below. Maybe you think they have. Maybe, in my opinion, there's just been no change. Maybe some people may think things have gotten worse. I just don't see how renaming forts, renaming roads. While filming today, I met a gentleman who said he was from the Newport News area, and there was a road named after Confederate General Magruder. That road, he said, was renamed 2 years ago. I don't know if that's true or not, but perhaps it is. Why not? They're renaming roads around all military bases. I know I reported earlier this year, West Point, there was going to be some roads there that were going to be renamed because they were named after Confederate generals. Has any of this nonsense improved race relations in America? Again, I don't think it's made one bit of difference. But where it has made a bit of a difference is in the taxpayers' pocketbooks. Because I have seen articles that estimate the cost of renaming these 9 bases anywhere from 21 to 56 million taxpayer dollars. This is how the government is spending our money. There's no doubt about it that the tragic death of Heather Heyer was absolutely appalling and should not have happened. While her and I do not agree, or would not have agreed about Southern monuments, she did not deserve to die. And her death was extremely tragic and extremely sad. And James Fields got what he deserved. He will be spending the rest of his life in prison. This channel is apolitical. All I support is Civil War history, the good, the bad, the ugly. While to some, Southern monuments may be an eyesore and a reminder of terrible things, to me, they're just pieces of history, and history needs to be told. As I mentioned in a previous episode, it seems to me that a good number of people on the woke community just want to destroy American history, and I challenged them, and I would support them on this if they wanted to raise funds and start putting up monuments, markers, and plaques dedicated to the slaves, to the runaways. One person even suggested building a monument near the Gettysburg battlefield to commemorate the blacks that were captured by the Confederate Army and impressed back into slavery, or slavery for the first time. So far, nobody has taken me up on that offer to get the legwork going to make such a monument, and that is sad. I've noticed with the woke community, they like to throw around words like Nazi and fascist very callously and call people that they disagree with Nazis or fascist. And I've even seen articles in which people try to compare the Confederate States of America to Nazi Germany. What a stretch. If the two are inseparable, then could somebody please tell me where the gas chambers in the crematoriums were in the South so I can go there and report on them? I would love to do that. Who was the head of the Confederate Gestapo? I'd like to do a biography on that person. None of that exists because the Confederate States of America was a far, far cry from Nazi Germany. But there are people that don't seem to want to admit to that. They just like to throw these words out without knowing anything about the meanings of the words that they are using. Again, this channel is apolitical. I'm just reporting on what I've read and trying to make a point. And for Civil War Reports, I am your War of the Rebellion reporter, Brian Thomas Kopak. Until next time, thank you for watching. And if you like what you saw today, please hit the subscribe button. Give a thumbs up. Also, notify your friends. Let them know about this channel and ask them to subscribe as well. If you like, you may leave a question or a comment below, and perhaps I will answer your question in a future episode of Civil War Reports. Until next time, please keep the history alive.